Hello and welcome to this overview of Acropolis Pyre, the first book in the Mythspeaker adventure path for Pathfinder Second Edition. This video is aimed at GMs who want to run this adventure, providing you with general advice to prep this book, followed by a recap of each chapter. For each chapter, I will also provide suggestions and tips. We will then finish with a brief look at what lies ahead in this adventure path so that you know what you could already foreshadow or need to be aware of as you guide your fledgling hero gods through this epic story. Needless to say, this video is filled to the brim with spoilers. If you're playing in a Mythspeaker campaign or expect to play in one soon, stop this video right now. Without further ado, let us dive into Acropolis Pyre. Before running this adventure, familiarize yourself with the NPCs featured in it. The first chapter introduces a lot of characters. Some of these will play a part in other parts of this book, and some will stick around for the entire campaign. You should make sure the characters meet those NPCs and have a chance to establish ties with them. Alternatively, you could ask your players to establish ties with some of these NPCs even before the game begins. Perhaps one PC regularly spars with Sapple or goes treasure hunting with Fel. Establishing ties with the recurring NPCs will make it easier for you to integrate them into the story. Terpsime brings all the PCs together at the start of the book, so making sure the characters have a reason to be in her home is key. Aki, Olshuk, and Simone will become rivals for the party for the entire campaign. Also, Yasminai and the crew of the Tidehunter will accompany the PCs through the entire campaign, so creating some links between them and the characters will also tie things nicely together. The PCs begin this campaign as non-mythic characters. By the end of Chapter 2, they will have acquired their mythic powers. This means your players have a bit of time to read up on the mythic rules and consider which calling their characters should follow. If you are using milestone leveling, you might want to line up the level up to level 3 with the moment the PCs receive their mythic powers in Chapter 2. As written, the characters rise to level 3 at the start of Chapter 3, which could be just one session after they receive their mythic powers. Aligning the level up and mythic ascendance allows the players to do all of their character updating in one go. The Steno Pathos will become the villain of the campaign and is at the start of the adventure not far away from the player characters. The book describes that he is on the island of Euphrae, seeking inspiration for new songs. When the war shard crashes down there, he hears the voice of Sange, takes the war shard, and becomes her prophet as she stirs below the Isles of Iblydos. He will then travel to Bailax, proselytizing the return of the Titan and spreading malicious influence, causing problems the PCs will have to solve. However, as written, the player characters have no direct interaction with Pathos until all the way in Book 3 of this adventure path. I am personally not a fan of such a late introduction to a villain. If you want to have the PCs meet Pathos, they could run into him in Bailax as he is traveling through, watching the funeral games for inspiration. Perhaps he strikes up a conversation with the PCs, writing down their experiences as participants and promising to turn them into a song. He could tell them he is planning to travel to Euphrae, which allows you to name drop that location before the characters sail there in Chapter 2. Chapter 1, To Honor the Fallen, has the PCs start off in the home of Terpsime in the city of Bailax. While enjoying her hospitality, she tells the characters that the city will host funeral games in honor of the fallen local hero Dintolneon. He was no hero god, but his deeds meant much for the people of the city, and in times as troubled as the Age of Lost Omens, having some friendly competition to honor the memory of such a great person is a welcome distraction. Terpsime wants to sponsor the characters to participate in these games as a team, The PCs will be competing against a number of other teams across 5 different games, in which they can earn points. Whichever team has earned the most points after all these games is crowned the ultimate champion. In between these games, the player characters will have a few chances to help people in Bailax dealing with various problems, including fighting off bratty copper scams in the forge and helping to exorcise a spirit from the home of a competitor. The 5 games are spread over 5 days, and after their conclusion, the citizens of Bailax and all competitors gather to witness the spirits of the dead, including that of heroic Dentolneon, wander off into the sea on Moon Day. However, this beautiful farewell is disturbed when a meteor soars overhead and embers falling from it enrage the departing spirits. The PCs fight some of these spirits, helping restore the peace, but also know that this fallen star could mean trouble for Bailax. The purpose of the first chapter is twofold. First, it is of course to familiarize the PCs with the city of Bailax, the region of Iblydos, and with their fellow player characters. Competing in a series of games is an excellent way to highlight the skills of the various characters and to show how much the people of Bailax enjoy friendly competition. Second, it offers multiple chances for the player characters to show their heroic nature. The little side quests that occur in between the games should illustrate that these heroes are willing to help their fellow citizens. During the games, there's a chance for the PCs to jeopardize their chances of winning one of the competitions and instead save a group of sailors from a sinking ship and aggressive octopi. Make sure to highlight to your players that these are the moments in which their characters can show their heroic side. You can contrast this by members of other participating teams, like Aki and her gang, to not follow these calls to heroism and just focus on their own gain. The first chapter also allows you to introduce NPCs that will play a role in later chapters. Sepul, Fel, and Dikeos will join the PCs on their journey in Chapter 2, and Ifani has to be rescued in Chapter 3. You could also introduce the restaurants of Zentrios and Democores already in this chapter. Perhaps they provide the food for the fastest feast challenge. This allows you to foreshadow their rivalry, which will reach a boiling point in Chapter 3. The funeral games also use a lot of subsystems, each competition being either its own little set of rules, one of the known subsystems like chases, or a spin on an existing subsystem. It is wise to have a really clear picture of the mechanics of each game and read up on whatever subsystem it uses. Make sure to also be as transparent as possible to your players on what the mechanics of each discipline are and allow for some leeway and flexibility. The different games all come with lists of skills and other options the player characters can consider, but if a player has a really clever or fitting use of a skill, spell, or power, allow them to use that. You can always use the DCs presented for other skills in the games as guidelines. Shortly after the meteor flies over Bailax, Terpsime assembles the party and asks them to sail to the nearby island of Euphrae, where the events of Chapter 2, Seeking the Bright-Tailed Star, begin. The rulers of Bailax believe the meteor most likely hit the ground on that nearby island, and they want to make sure it does not pose any threat to the city and its people. Together with some of the NPCs the party met during the funeral games, the group boards the Tidehunter, a ship captained by Yasminai. Braving a storm and massive sea serpent, the heroes arrive on Euphrae and have to explore the island. On their journey, they learn that this used to be the home of a shrine to the hero god Sophrasta. Sophrasta was betrayed by her ally Ikleos, leading to her death. The hero god would return as a ghost, haunting her island home, unable to find her final rest. When her lover Merosine learned of this betrayal, she poisoned Ikleos, killing him and causing him to rise again as a Herexan. Merosine herself performed a ritual with a group of Naiad to seal Ikleos in the shrine of Sophrasta and put herself in a deep slumber until heroes would arrive to lay her beloved to rest. As the characters explore this island, they will come upon various ways to learn of these events and have a chance to help Melusine and Sophrista. They learn that the impact of the fallen star caused the magic that bound Iblydos to the temple to weaken, and will have to deal with the Hyrexon. Once the party finds the meteor crater, they fight off a pair of griffins imbued by mythic power that the meteor released. Here the heroes gain their first taste of such might, as they are able to utilize the ambient mythic energy, and after overcoming this encounter, witness a vision of Sanghe's fate as their own mythic callings awaken. However, the crater is empty, and who exactly took what crashed down here is unknown. Time to return to Bailax and see what has happened there in the meantime. This chapter combines two different plots. The first is about the PCs coming to Euphoria and having to explore the island to find the crash site of the meteor, while the second one is about the tragedy of Sophrista. I suggest reading up on the history of the island, Sophrista, Melusine, and Iblydos in the book so that you have a clear understanding of what has happened here and how it is tied to current events. Exploring Euphoria is done using the Hexploration rules. If you and your group are no big fans of potential filler encounters and a slower exploration pace, you could consider narratively describing the party's track across the island. Pick out a few of the encounters presented in this chapter and use them as they travel. If you go this route, make sure the party will encounter NPCs that can tell them about the history of the island. Meeting the Pegasus Iocorus or the Naiad early is a great way to expose the players to this information. The encounters in the village ruins and ancient outpost are a good way to portray the ancient history found in this place and provide the PCs with a bit of flavor. The story of Sophrista is supposed to be resolved after the PCs fight the mythic griffins. Taking on the roles of foes in a play, the characters help the ghost of the hero god find catharsis in one final triumph before passing on. If it is catharsis that Sophrista seeks, why not involve her in the mythic encounter against the griffins? I would suggest having the PCs meet Sophrista before they get to the crater. She can listen to the character's story, and knowing about this fury star that fell from the sky, Sophrista can be easily convinced to help the characters out. For her, this could be the heroic deed she's looking for to finally pass on. Her inner struggle against the rage radiating from the crater is a good explanation for her not fully joining the fight, but she could assist the characters in other ways, like performing an aid action to support an attack, or pointing out that the characters should draw upon the ambient mythic power. Aiding a group of young heroes in the defeat of such foes, and then witnessing the awakening of their mythic callings, is in my opinion a better way for Sophrista to find the catharsis she seeks. Pathfinder has arrived before the PCs and took the war shard from the crater. If you have had the characters meet Pathfinder in Chapter 1, you could provide some clue here to his involvement. Perhaps the Steno accidentally left behind his instrument as he escaped with the shard, or NPCs like the Naiad or Iocorus saw Pathfinder earlier. In the final chapter of this book, Rage at Rosyfinger Dawn, the heroes have to save Bailax from the fallout of the war shard. Lingering embers of the meteor have fallen on the city, sparking actual fires, but also igniting rage, fury, and hatred in the citizens. Old rivalries turn bloody, and things are looking desperate as the adventurers return to the city's harbor. Combined with the stirring of Sanghe and the depth beneath Iblydos, this has caused the entire city to fall into utter chaos. To make matters worse, Pathfinder has traveled through Bailax, proselytizing the word of Sanghe, and the war shard he carries further inciting violence in the people around him. While Yasminai and her crew work to help citizens and find supplies for the player characters, the heroes have to travel all over Bailax to extinguish literal and metaphorical fires. These events include ending a rivalry between two restaurants before it becomes a full-out war in the streets, saving pyre fowls, and helping an eccentric alchemist concoct a cure for a deadly disease. As the heroes save citizens and show their budding mythic might, things become even more dire in Bailax. A group of citizens in one district have captured the Cyclops Ifani and are convinced that if they ritually sacrifice her, they can absorb myth-speaking powers and save the city. Needless to say, the adventurers need to prevent this from happening. The heroes will have to infiltrate the dark ritual these citizens try to organize, locate Ifani, and help her escape without the mob noticing. Ifani tells the heroes that many of the officials have retreated to the upper city, behind the walls of the Acropolis. She knows that there is a ritual that can be performed to summon the city's Phoenix patron's powers, cleansing whatever affliction has befallen the people of Bailax. Ifani believes that the leaders of the city might be attempting to perform that ritual, and that they could use all the help they can get. The party heads for the Acropolis to see how they can assist. Unfortunately, the unnatural rage and anger has also fallen on the highest point of the city. Government officials have violently lashed out against the Cyclops myth speakers, and both sides have retreated to their own quarters in the Acropolis. Both factions accuse each other of not having the city's best interest in mind, or that the ritual could not work anyway, for it requires mythic power the city has not seen in a while. The heroes will have to get these warring factions back to the negotiation table and prove their own mythic might by making the necessary preparations for this rite of cleansing flames. This includes reigniting sacred pyres and facing off against an embodiment of the Phoenix flame itself. At the end of all of this, with the ritual successfully executed, Paul Bailax is cured from the malign influence of the fallen star. Order returns to the city, and the heroes have cemented themselves as upcoming hero gods. A bright future surely awaits Iblydos. Or is all of this just the beginning of even greater turmoil awaiting these lands? The final chapter of this book is all about offering the PCs chances to demonstrate their newfound mythic powers and show to the people of Bailax they truly are heroes. Make sure to give the characters chances to demonstrate the mythic proficiencies of their callings. Saving Bailax is basically set up into 3 phases. The first phase begins when the PCs return to the city and consists of 6 events the players can tackle in any order. Keep in mind that each event has a time pressure entry, which adds additional complications if the PCs do not deal with it within a certain number of days. The second phase begins after 2 days, or after the PCs have completed 4 events of Phase 1. This is where they hear of the ritual a group of citizens are planning, trying to sacrifice the Cyclops Ifani to gain myth-speaking powers. The third phase starts once the PCs have saved Ifani and hear of what is happening in the Acropolis. This phase concludes once the rite of cleansing flames is successfully performed and Bailax saved. The events in the Acropolis can also be done in any order, but you run the risk your players might feel like they are just exploring the site without a clear goal. It is important that you use the encounters the PCs come upon as a means to tell them which actions are necessary to save Bailax. Most likely, the heroes will encounter the Cyclops myth speakers first. They can give them a complete rundown of what they need to do, providing structure to this final segment of the adventure. If you're planning to feature Pateos more prominently in this chapter, know that, as written, he has already left the city. Considering he will be occupied elsewhere during Book 2, unless you want to change that too, it makes sense to no longer have him in the city while the PCs are saving it. Still, consider having NPCs tell the characters about the Steno traveling through the city and speaking of the return of a Titan. Perhaps some saw the war shard he carried with him and noticed that wherever he went, more unrest followed. Finally, make sure you provide the PCs with time to rest up and resupply. The Tide Hunter serves as a base of operations and even has items for sale. While most events are on somewhat of a timer, the PCs have enough time to rest if necessary. With the events of Acropolis Pyre completed, The PCs deserve some downtime to be celebrated as the heroes they are, and further build a reputation within Bailax. Your players could already think about how their characters use this downtime and come up with little vignettes you could roleplay in which their mythic powers are demonstrated. In the second book, Death Sails a Wine Dark Sea, the PCs will travel all over Iblydos to learn to control their powers. The crew of the Tidehunter will aid them in this, so it makes sense to incorporate them in the downtime. Perhaps the heroes help Yasminai on some short excursions along the shores of the island, or just learn more about her and her crew's past. This crew and ship will most likely be with the characters for the entire campaign, so making it feel like home is definitely worth it. The Steno Pateos is entirely absent in the second book, but depending on how palpable you have made his role in this book, it would not be surprising for the PCs to want to find out where he went. You could consider sprinkling rumors of the appearance of a Titan-praising Steno into your game, which the characters could follow during the second book. Still, keep in mind that the second book is about the heroes learning to understand their own powers and cementing their status as new hero gods. While I personally prefer to have Pateos more in the foreground, it does make sense if his part will move somewhat to the background for the next book. And that's it for this overview of Acropolis Pyre. I hope this will be helpful to you and that you and your group have a lot of fun with this adventure. Let me know in the comments below what you like most about this book, or share your own tips. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care, and bye-bye.